17104.com.
Good morning, everybody. This is the day the Lord has made. I am rejoicing. I am excited. And yes, I am glad in it. Because guess what? The Lord woke us up this morning, number one. And number two, thank goodness that I was reassigned, reappointed, sent right back to Wesley Union AME Zion Church here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I am excited about it because Wesley Union is an awesome church with some awesome people. They show nothing but awesome love for a pastor, and not just the pastor, but the entire First family. We are excited. We are glad to be here. We are always excited about what God is doing, and God is doing some major stuff in our lives, and definitely some major stuff here in the life of Wesley Union. And we're glad to be a part of the great city of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the capital city here in Harrisburg. And God continues to do great work, and we're just excited. And I'm excited because the work ain't done. It just begun, and we're looking forward to what God is going to do on this year. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for continued support throughout the entire year. And all the ministry and stuff we do. Thank you, those who tune in from across the seas on the other side of the west side of the country. Thank you, Sister Giles, Sister Dansby, everybody that tunes in, Sister Anna Brown. I send our prayers to Brother Brown, who lost his father. Continue prayers for him. Thank you all, Sister Roberts and Sister Reed, all of you who join in, Sister Jackson, everybody. Thank y'all so much for joining us via online. We're thankful for you. We're grateful for you because you don't have to do it, but you do, because you could join any other service, but you decided to tune in this morning to be with us, and I am grateful for it. So thank you. Love you. Ain't nothing you can do about it. I'm excited. Where there's a word for the day, is word for the day. Exodus chapter 13. If you get an opportunity, read the book of Exodus. I say read verses chapters 1 through 12 in its entirety, because Exodus is an awesome book to read about God's hand on God's people. And understand that the background of Exodus, before we get to chapter 13, the children of Israel are in bondage. They are in bondage to an unruly Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh, overseeing the people, refuses to let them go in the desert for 3 days for a revival, just to worship God. And of course, Pharaoh says, if you got time to worship God, then you can make bricks without straw, and I want twice the quota, since you have so much time to worship God. Mental note: don't ever get surprised when people try to get upset with you and make times hard for you because you want to go to the church, because you want to sing in the choir, because you want to devote your time to God. They say no. Then God sends a young man. Of course, Moses has to tell him, look, Pharaoh, let God's people go. Just let us go. And Pharaoh goes back and says, I'm not going to do it. So the Lord sent the message, don't worry, Moses. Pharaoh's about to find out just how powerful I really am, and how much I really care and love my children, because they have been crying out to me. And of course, you know, the plague of gnats, frogs, dust, thunder, lightning, hail, all that goes on during this time period. Finally, Pharaoh says, look, just leave. Just take your folk and get up out of here. And the text tells us in that 12th chapter that, hey, by 12 and 13, Pharaoh basically, take your people and go. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you provisions. Pharaoh gives them food, gives them clothing, gives them money. In other words, he's paying them to get out. Yes, sir. Some of y'all parents right now think about paying your kids to get out of the house. Pay them to leave. But then, as the children of Israel began to approach the Red Sea, something shifts, something happens. Pharaoh says back at home, he's like, you know what? The people say, well, who's going to do all this free labor for us? We need to get them back. We should have never let the slaves go free. Does that sound familiar? Wow. We should have never let them go free. So then they go to pursue after them. And we get on chapter 13, verse 18, then I'm going to skip over to chapter 14 and read verse 10 through 15. It reads, chapter 13, verse 17, when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. For God said, if they face war, they may change their minds and return to Egypt. Verse 18, so God led the people around the desert road toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt ready for battle. Yes. Don't miss that. The Israelites went up out of Egypt ready for battle. That's what the text says. Now, move on over to chapter 14 And I want you to pick up right here on verse number 10. Exodus 14, the 10th verse, and it reads as this. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone? Let us serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Moses answered the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide the water so the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. The word of God, the people of God, thanks be to God. I want you to consider a topic for this morning. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Anybody ever utter those words to somebody while you were standing in line? Keep moving forward, please. Or maybe you didn't utter the words to them. Maybe you just said it under your breath. I wish they would keep moving forward. Maybe you found yourself at the checkout and you wanted someone to move a little bit faster. Maybe you was on the highway and someone began slow down and stop. You said, can you please keep moving forward because we're trying to get through this traffic. You want folk to make a move because they're hindering and blocking your process. But I'm reminded, Pastor Chris, there I was with our boys. We went on our family vacation, Sister Giles. So, Giles, we took these boys to Legoland. Legoland will have you build yourself out of something. You hear me? Sure. So there we were at Legoland, and while we were going through Legoland, there were different rides at which you could go through. Well, we got to one particular ride that was like a water ride, that they would spray you with water blasts and things like that on the ride. Well, Pastor Thomas, we get to the ride, and my son Emerson says, Daddy, let's go this way. I said, Emerson, we can't go that way. That's the exit. He said, but it's shorter. I said, even though it might be shorter, we still can't take that route because that's the exit. We have to go this way. Sure. So, of course, we have to go around like we are a herd of cattle and go through the lines and change and around. Well, my son Emerson is a very intelligent young man and short. So, of course, he crawled under the rails and made himself all to the front of the line. Ain't nothing wrong. He was very gracious, Pastor Thomas. He was gracious enough to turn around and tell all, hey, y'all come on. I'm already up here. And of course, families, you know, they laugh because they know he's a young man. And I said, well, y'all go ahead and just keep him. But of course, eventually they was going to send him back anyway. So, but we had a problem. The problem was that Emerson was tall enough for the ride. Ellis was tall enough for the ride, but Evan was not tall enough to get on the ride. My wife stepped back because, you know, an African-American woman, she wasn't about to get her hair wet. So she stayed back from the ride. But all the boys wanted to get on the ride, but this was my turn to ride, but Evan wasn't tall enough. Bring this morning's topic, just keep moving forward. There we were here, the children of Israel need to make a move and they had to keep moving forward. The problem in which they had is that they were in bondage for a number of years unto Pharaoh. In bondage that were lost their children, they were beaten and killed. And as Moses came and said, let the people go, as I said earlier, they make this transition. Then they get to the Red Sea and time to cross, but they don't know where to go, what direction to go. They see the Egyptians and they get scared. But we need to keep moving forward. There are three things I want to point out to us.
Yes, sir.
to remind us that no matter what, we have to keep moving forward. Point number one is, you have to enjoy the journey. I know it can be difficult sometimes because the journey that you may be going on right now, or the journey that you've been on, was a long, treacherous journey. A journey that which you thought or you felt it could have been a whole lot shorter. There are some things that which you went through for the process, the fact that you had to go through. Don't you know that God takes us through some things instead of sending us through a shorter route, a shortcut, so we can learn the process? Don't miss the text. The Lord says there was a shorter route to the promised land. But the Lord knew that had he took the Egyptians the shorter route, the moment they got scared, they would want to run back to Egypt. How many of us can testify that when you look back over your life right now, if you knew what you had to go through to get to where you were going, chances are you would have never made that move. You would have tried to make the shortcut. But even if you went to make the shortcut, the moment you saw an obstacle, the moment you saw a bump in the road, the moment you heard one person talking negative about you, you would have turned around and went back like a turtle, drew back up in your shell, and not made a move and stayed stuck in a place, in a situation that you were in. You did not see the journey that you had to go on, but don't you know you need to enjoy the journey that you go on?
Yes, sir.
I know you say, Reverend Miller, how in the world can someone enjoy a journey of heartache? How can someone enjoy the journey of being downtrodden? How can someone enjoy the journey of being hurt and displaced? Yes, I know that is very difficult during that journey time. But guess what? During that journey, now that you look back over it, you see where God was all around your life when things were going on. You enjoy the journey, and you enjoy the scenery of that journey. You enjoy the scenery because you get to look and see who your real friends really are. You get to look and see exactly where your help comes from. Look at this, don't miss this. While they were on this long journey, they got to get the manna from heaven. While they were on the long journey, they got the quail to eat. While they were on the long journey, they got water from a rock. While they were just sojourning through, they saw that it was not man that did it. It was not Pharaoh. It was God that provided for them on this long journey. Ooh-wee. I don't know about you, but I'm excited already. I feel like shouting. If I had enough room, well, actually I do have enough room, I can run around up in this studio. And there's parts of the journey that you truly have to enjoy. And if we think about it, if we really think and look back over our lives right now, you can thank God for some things that you went through. Because you know more now than what you knew before, all because of the journey. He said, I took them the shorter route. Even though there was a longer route, even though I took them the longer route, even though it was a shorter route they could have went, I know their fears. That's point number two. Point number two is God knows your fears. Don't miss, ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We all talk big and bad, but deep down inside, we have some fears. When we went to apply for that job, we looked in the mirror and said, you got this. You know you can do this. You're going to ace this interview. You're going to pass this test. But the closer you got to that job, the moment you put your hand on the doorknob and said, fear was running all through it. You began to say to yourself, I'm not qualified for this job. I shouldn't be working at this job. I should never applied for this job. God knows your fears. And so since God knows your fears, God will take you the route you need to go to help build you up. Don't miss it. God knows the fears of the children of Israel. Look right there. Right there in verse 17, 18. You saw where they go through the process and deal with the journey. But also, verse 18 says what? The text says that the Israelites left armed for battle. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. The text says they left armed for battle. But when you get over to chapter 14, verse 10, Pastor Thomas, the text says that when the Israelites looked up and saw the Egyptian army, they were terrified. That makes me scratch my hair a little bit, run my fingers through my hair. Now you left Egypt armed for battle. But then you saw the Egyptians and you were afraid to battle. I tell you, God knows your fears. In other words, you can be all prepped and prepared, all ready to go, but let the right challenge come up, and all of a sudden you're scared, you're afraid. You got everything in order, but let the right situation come along to scare your socks off. All you need is the right fear, the right boogeyman, the right clown to show up. And you say, forget that, I'm not doing that. And don't miss this. The children of Israel were so afraid that they said, look, we were better off where we were. How in the world were you better off being beaten? How in the world were you better off being abused? How in the world were you better off being oppressed? That's what victims of domestic violence begin to think sometimes. When they want to leave the situation, they step out there and get fearful because the bills start piling up. They get fearful because they're looking for. So then they say, I was better off back where I was in my abusive relationship. No, you're not. God says, I got you. God knows what kind of fears that you have. He knows everything about you. God knew you before you were even formed in your mother's womb. So God knows exactly what you're afraid of. But look, don't let what you're afraid of outweigh your trust you have in God. Good God Almighty. Now look, don't miss it. They say, Moses, you should have just left us alone.
Yes.
Left us there, and well, not enough graves in Egypt where we could die. But look, my man Moses, my man Moses, I can imagine he put his hand on his head, Sister Giles. Maybe he squinted his eyes and said, look, I need y'all to be quiet. Look what he says. I need y'all to be quiet and watch what the Lord is going to do. Don't miss this. Don't miss this. This is the final point right here. Yes. You have to be ready to make a bold move. I know you may say, Ray Miller, why you need to be ready to make a bold move? Because the text says that Moses says, hey, I don't need y'all to be arguing, bickering, upset, wanting to go back to an oppressive state. I need you to be still. Right there in verse 15 through, he says, look, and watch the Lord deliver you. Oh, good God Almighty. And look, I got a shout moment for you right here. It's a shout moment within a shout moment. How's it a shout moment within a shout moment, Sister Giles? You may ask. I'm glad you asked that question. It's a shout moment within a shout moment because Moses is the one that says, hey, don't be afraid. Watch what God will do. Y'all just stand still and watch God deliver you. It's a shout moment because the Lord hasn't even spoken yet. The Lord comes and speaks after Moses says something. Moses says, look, be still and watch what the Lord is going to do. The reason why that's a shout moment is because in spite of the vast army coming before them, he doesn't let that deter him from trusting in God. In other words, Moses basically says, look, it might look rough right now, but I know God is going to do something. God is not going to leave us out here hanging. I know God has got our back. And then the Lord speaks and says, hey, Moses, what you crying out to me for? Look, y'all going to be all right. You're going to cross the Red Sea on dry ground. Stretch out your staff and then wave your hand, and the Red Sea is going to fall. Don't miss it. Now, up by my house, Sister Giles, they got construction work going on. They're doing some excavating there, excavating through some land, and like they're building a little roadway. They're digging up the pavement. They have a backhoe. They got bulldozers. They got trucks coming in with gravel and dirt. All that to excavate everything. All that to build this house, to build this roadway. Well, guess what? Here, the children of Israel by the Red Sea. God doesn't have a bulldozer. God doesn't have a backhoe. Yes, God don't have manpower. He just tell Moses, stretch out your staff and your hand and watch what happens. In other words, God sits there and does this. He's basically saying, Moses, don't complain about what you don't have. I'm going to use what you do have and make what needs to happen happen. Ooh, good God Almighty. Some of you may have just missed that. Stop complaining about what you don't have.
Sure.
Stop complaining that you had the wrong lottery numbers. Look, you don't need to win the lottery. Just be good steward of what you got. You ask God for a mansion, you can't take care of your house. Look, stop complaining about what you don't have. Utilize what you do have and watch what God will do. How do you know that'll work, Reverend Miller? Look, y'all just look in the mirror right now. Look, you ain't qualified for your job, but you worked that job for 30, 40 years. You don't have the intellect, but you one of the smartest people in the room. You don't have the height nor the might, but yet God blessed you to make things happen. Good God Almighty. Right now, even
My.
all David had in his hand was what? All he had was a slingshot. And look what he did with just a slingshot. So as long as you use what you had, all David had was a slingshot. All Elijah had was a cloak. All that Jesus had was a pot of water they turned into wine. That's all it. But he used what he had, and the Lord blessed in a mighty special way. The boy just had 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, and they fed 5,000. Use what you have. But don't miss this. It's another shout right here.
Yes.
Not only God use their hand, Lord tells them the second miracle. He says you're going to cross on dry ground. Don't miss it. You're going to cross the Red Sea on dry ground. Oh, good God Almighty. As you cross the Red Sea on dry ground, Sister Roberts, watch this. Typically, when water and dirt mix, you're going to get mud, but they cross on dry ground. In other words, they're going to cross and people are not going to know what they've been through. Oh, good God Almighty. Is anybody on the sound of my voice that you've been through some stuff? You've been on a long journey. You crossed over some bridges and now you don't look like you've been there. Let me go ahead and make it plain. For those that got nice houses, that pristine house, well, your house really ain't nice. That it really ain't that nice, but you act like it's really nice. And you tell everybody, take your shoes off when you come in the house because I don't want you to dirty up the carpet, and the carpet dirty anyway. And because they don't want you to track dirt in. Well, guess what? I just crossed the Red Sea, and it wasn't muddy, it was dry ground. So people can't tell where I've been. Ooh, good God Almighty. The Lord bless. That's your shout moment right there. That the Lord provides provision for you to cross over on dry ground, and you don't look like what you've been through. So you have to be ready, willing, and able to make a bold move. Don't miss it. God said, tell everybody to move on. Y'all keep moving. Because don't miss this. Don't you know when you do something, God does something? Every time you make a move, God makes a move. God makes a move with you. People say that when you take one step, God takes 2 steps. Well, realistically, you take about 10 steps, God takes 1, because it takes a whole lot of your steps to fill in 1 step of God, because God is what? Always 1 step ahead of you. Good God Almighty. Don't miss it. A crossover on dry ground. That's something to shout about. And look, and then after they cross, when you keep reading the text says, and the Lord closes up the Red Sea. And we know he closes up for 2 purposes. 1, to get rid of the Egyptians, and 2, so they can't go back. You can never go back to the person that oppressed you. Never go back to the situation that harmed you. Never go back to the situation that tore you down. Never go back to the situation that tried to destroy you. I've heard people oftentimes say, Pastor Thomas, you better be careful not to burn your bridges. Well, sometimes, don't you know, they give you the match and the gas. So go ahead and set that baby on, as the Ohio players would say, fire. There are some bridges that need to be burned. But then they get down to Evan, and when it's time for Evan to get on, they look and say, well, look, the young man Evan's not really tall enough. And they say, wait, who are you? I say, I'm his father. They say, oh, well, since you his father, he can get on because he can ride with you. Don't miss it. Don't miss it on your journey. I don't care what you are lacking. As long as your father is with you, you can go wherever you need to go. Then we go through the ride. Now, on this ride, they had water cannons. They had splash things going on all around us. We get off the ride. There is Emerson is drenched with water. There Ellis is drenched with water. And Evan was dry. Emerson wet, Ellis wet, Evan is dry. My wife said, now how in the world they all wet? Honey, look at you and you wet. How are you wet and Evan ain't wet? I said, because I was on the side where the water was blasting at. So when the water blasts, I'd cover up Evan. What are you saying, Reverend Miller? God will cover you when you're going through shots and fires. God will cover you so you don't look like what you've been through. He went through the same torrential waters that came bouncing back and forth. The same blast from outside was coming in. He's laughing, having a good time, but the Father was taking all the hits. I'm going to tell somebody right now, whatever your journey is, whatever hits that you're taking, whatever rain is coming in your life, because I went through hell yesterday. We literally had a hailstorm. So we went through hell just yesterday. But look at God. We don't look like what we've been through. So whatever you do, I don't care if you have to crawl, just keep moving forward. If you have to walk, keep moving forward. Whatever you do, don't stop moving forward. Anybody on the side of my voice where you come to a standstill? Where felt that you can't go any further? You're tempted to go back to where you came from because it looked so pleasing, or actually it looked comfortable. But God has called you for greater. God has called you to go forward to a greater destination. You've been afraid, and God has opened up doors for you. God has opened up elevators. Look, God has even knocked down some walls for you, but you were just still afraid to go forward. You know, you have to get to the point where you start doubting your doubts. That I doubt my doubts are right about me. I can make this move. I am qualified for this. God is watching over me. Well, children of Israel learned that God stands by his word. God watches over his children. God will protect and keep just like he protecting and keeping you. So maybe it's you, maybe you want to stand in the gap for somebody else who needs prayer right now, who's contemplating going back to a bad situation, contemplating building an old bridge back up the crossing. You can tell them that bridge is burned for a reason. Watch what God, be still, move on, and watch what God does. Enjoy the scenery on this journey, because God is up to major things. No, nothing else to be said or done on my part. Thank you so much for joining on this week. You didn't have to. You could have been anywhere, but you decided to tune in. Like, man, God bless you. Woman, God bless you. Child, God bless you for joining in. If you'd like to make a donation to the ministry, you can. Find us on Give Apply, Wesley Union AME Zion Church. Or you can give us via Cash App, $ Wesley Union Impact. If you want to put something in the mail, you can do that too. P.O. Box 5124, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania 17110. Whatever it is you'd like to do, it'll be a blessing to the ministry as we continue to do the work to uplift the people in our community. May God continue to watch over, bless, and keep each one of you. Until next time, God bless you. Make an impact in the community and make an impact in somebody's life. Till next time, God bless. Thank y'all for joining us, Sister Giles, Sister Roberts, Brother Thomas. Thank you for joining us, Sister Dansby. Everybody, thank y'all so much for joining us, Sister Brown. Glad to see you all. God bless you.